Israel just voted to approve a plan for the full military occupation of Gaza. Not just certain zones, but everything. Here's the report. Israeli government approves a plan for full military occupation of Gaza. An Israeli official told Haaretz that the plan is different from previous Israeli military operations because it will lead to the occupation of territory and a sustained Israeli presence in Gaza. And Israeli Finance Minister Smotrich said once this new offensive begins, it will not end until the Strip is, quote, conquered. Hasn't it already been conquered, by the way? And we were told this weekend that Houthi rebels attacked Israel's main airport. Here was the moment this missile struck one of the areas in the tarmac. Here you can see. It just made it through unfettered. Here are some other. This was a man sort of dancing or singing sort of inside. You can watch this as this happened. Again, these are civilians. I mean, there's children there. So are the Houthis attacking civilian airport? Looking to attack civilians? Is that where we're at? John Basham.
There were no deaths in that attack, only injuries so far.
John Basham posted this. He's a former U.S. Army. He posted this. He said, breaking. Somehow a missile evaded the U.S. Navy missile defense in the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden and Israel's Iron Dome to hit Israel's Ben Gurion Airport in Tel Aviv. The IDF claims it's a Houthi ballistic missile from Yemen backed by Iran's government. Israel is desperate to attack Iran. All right, so let's unpack this now. Colonel Davis is joining us today here on the show, trying to make sense of all of this. Colonel, good to see you. Welcome back to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So when you see this, I think he brings up a good point. And look, I'm very aware false flags work a lot. False flags are incredibly effective. He sort of seems to be saying that, how did this missile fly through the Red Sea, evade the Gulf of Aden, the U.S. Navy's missile defense system, goes right through Israel's Iron Dome, and it hits a civilian airport. Do you think that this was a false flag or a legitimate Houthi attack on a civilian airport?
Well, we certainly can't really discount any of it. We don't have anywhere near enough information. But categorically, I mean, we can't put it past anyone to do a false flag if they think it's going to be in their interest to do so. There's been plenty of things that the Israeli side has said from the beginning of this, from October 7th on forward, that proved to be completely untrue if they think it's going to help them out. But it's also entirely possible that this missile did get through, because we saw in both of the attacks against Israel from Iran in 2024, especially the second one, quite a number of ballistic missiles evaded the system. It was many of the missiles were not intercepted, so it is not at all surprising this, because the Iron Dome, and we've had some experts on our channel here who were very, very versed in the operations of the Iron Dome system, the David Sling, all of those different various levels of it, and they said, look, a lot of these things can get through, especially some of the higher end ballistic missiles that Iran has, and apparently some that also the Houthis have, whether they were domestically made or given by Iran, who can say? But this idea that the Iron Dome is 99% flawless, which is what the Israelis have claimed after the second attack in 2024, is just not borne out by the physical evidence. So it is possible that this got through. But the bottom line is, whether it was a false flag or whether it actually got through, the Israeli side certainly does seem to be wanting to use it to build up momentum for a war with Iran, and there are plenty in the United States that seem eager to help them.
Well, part of my hesitance to believe this is that it takes a long time for us to push back against the IDF to get true stories. So think of the targeting of journalist Shireen Abu Akleh. It took international outrage for an investigation to happen. Now the IDF says, look, we can't send food into Gaza because these are bags of bullets. Look what we found, right? And so the information's coming at us so fast and furious, and the U.S. government accepts what the IDF says as standard, and the rest of us have to say, how do we know?
Well, like I said, that's been a problem literally since day one of this war, and you can understand because people have this instinctive desire to want to believe that the Israeli side is the good guys and the Hamas side are all evil, et cetera, because that's what we've been taught for decades. And so, if we hear a story that matches what we already believe, then it's easy to believe that, and that is being used by the Israeli side. It's a part of war. All war is deception. Everybody engages in it to one extent or another. So we need to get past the idea that anything the IDF official spokesman says is true. You need to stop taking really anybody's view for anything face value. On our deep dive show, we look at what people say, but then we compare it to what's true on the ground. And then when you look at the Gaza Strip and you want to hear that this is collateral damage, I mean that's laughable at face value. It's clearly a systematic effort to completely destroy and eradicate the ability to sustain life within the Strip by the Palestinian people. So that's just one of the examples, and unfortunately, there's a lot.
So that was yesterday. So let's bring people up to speed today because Israel has struck back. They hit the Yemeni port in response to this attack on the airport, and they're saying that we're hitting this port because that's the port that's used to transfer weapons from Iran. So Israel has struck back now. This seems to be deteriorating, although President Trump is heading to the Middle East, I think next week, right? Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates. So for anything to really deteriorate out of control might happen probably after Trump is back home safe and sound out of the Middle East. But you hear the rhetoric from Benjamin Netanyahu yesterday saying that President Trump is right, that Iran is behind all of these Houthi attacks. So all signs seem to be pointing right directly at Iran. So what do you make of this Israeli response on this Yemeni port today?
Yeah, I mean, that's just the next one in line. And of course, we've got our own whole issue and operation in the Red Sea that we routinely, hundreds of airstrikes that we've launched against the Houthis in Yemen since the 15th of March. People don't pay attention to the fact that we've also lost, at least the last count I had, 7 Predator drones since the 15th of March, 15 altogether. Of course, we lost an F-18 fighter jet off the deck when we were apparently trying to evade a missile that was coming in at our aircraft carrier. So the cost keeps packing up. Around $3 billion as of last week. I don't know what the current number is that we've spent since the 15th of March on a mission that's not even related to American national security, and that there is no viable reason to think that militarily we can accomplish that objective. So all we do is spend a lot of money, risk American lives, kill a lot of Houthi people or Yemeni people, because hundreds have been killed as so-called collateral damage in this, and it's not going to get anything accomplished. If you think that this is going to do something that's going to help either Israel or the United States, we have about a decade of experience with the Saudi Arabians to prove that's just very, very unlikely. You're not going to kill your way to success here, and all it's doing is keeping up the flames of the potential to keep blaming everything on Iran.
Now, how do you think this feels compared to wars that we were dragged into based on lies before? Because you were around when we were dragged into a war based on Afghanistan that intelligence already told us we could never win, because we had backed the Mujahideen against the Soviets. You were around when we were led into the weapons of mass destruction lies, but we didn't have Twitter at the time, or X. We didn't have a populace saying, we don't believe this, we're not following you, we're not doing this, because news media wouldn't platform them. Do you think this one feels like we have more of a power to break through the narrative this time?
And I'd like to say yes, because I want that to be true. But unfortunately, when you see who has the levers of power, when you see who has the full control of the mainstream media, which still has the levers of power, I mean, when you have all these guys like Jack Keane, Senator Fetterman was on X, it was either yesterday or today, just absolutely lobbying for a complete destruction of Iran. All kinds of people keep saying over and over, that's what we should do. And those things resonate because while there's a lot on social media, there's a lot on channels like yours right here. We're doing the same over on our channel, but we don't have the levers of power. And so I fear that even though there's a lot of increases, you correctly point out, and something I'm very encouraged about, I don't think that's going to save us between now and when there may be a decision made over whether we should start yet another absurd, foolish war that will only backfire on us. I certainly hope that that's the case, but I'm not really optimistic.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting. I was speaking to some sources today who are saying we're probably the war that we would see with Iran that comes from the United States and Israel is not going to be the type of war that you think it's going to be. It's not going to be the hot kinetic war in the way that you think it's going to be. It'll likely be something entirely different. I mean, we're talking about the potential of nuclear war here, and which I think everyone would want to avoid, tamp down these crazy expectations of a hot war. Do you see this being like something we haven't thought of, a different style of war against Iran?
Well, I worry that it's just not been thought out enough, and that there has been way too little thought of. And then what? Okay, so you bring in some B-2 bombers, you bring in some A-10s, which we have parked in the region, you bring in the long-range fighters, all that kind of stuff, and you strike a bunch of targets. And then what? All right, what if you don't take out all the centrifuges, all the places where they can do nuclear procurement, et cetera, or you take out all of the existing nuclear facilities that they have and the process stuff that they may have? Then what? Because now then, if they haven't done a nuclear weapons program up to this point, and according to Tulsi Gabbard a week or so ago, they still haven't, they dang sure will then. And so now then, what are you going to do? Because a lot of the stuff is buried so deep in the side of mountains, it's unlikely that we'll get to it. Moreover, there also has been a lot of reports I've seen in just the past 10 days that Iran has been getting lots of help from Russia in the form of S-400 air defense systems, maybe even some S-500s, if that's accurate. So they've been bolstered since they were attacked last by the Israeli side, and it is not at all out of the question that we could lose some of our fighter jets, some of our B-2 bombers, some of the aircraft that refuel in air, et cetera. So those are not safe. And now what are you going to do? Or worse, if Iran makes good on its threat that if you start attacking us, then we're going to attack American troops in the Middle East, in Iraq, in Syria, in Jordan. And I'm telling you right now that the missile systems that Iran has are systems we can't defend against many of our smaller bases. We don't have enough air defense for that kind of thing, and we will suffer casualties there. Then what do you do if you're President Trump? You can't just bomb them some more. Now then you're in a war that, by the way, hasn't been approved by Congress. It wasn't a declaration of war, but now we're in one. And then what are you going to do? You're going to send troops in there? You're just going to continue this long-range bombing? Towards what end? That's the problem here. Nobody's thinking about what comes next or even what an attainable military objective is. They just hope that a bunch of bombs stop the process.
Yeah, we could learn a lot from Lyndon Johnson's failures, right? To be a student of history on that mess. Just continue to send more people into the meat grinder.
And one of the reasons that we never got the truth about the Pulse Orlando nightclub shooting, where they said it was a homophobic motivated mass shooting, and it wasn't. It was someone who was protesting the United States droning of the Middle East and killing civilians. There's a reason we were never told that was the reason that person decided to shoot up a nightclub. We will inspire more people to attack us on our shores. So we're not safe just because of our geography, right?
Right. There's a much to that. I've had a number of folks on our show and others that I've read about that correctly say it. I'm talking about some very staunchly pro-Jewish, pro-Israeli people that are against the policies of the current Israeli government, that they say, listen, you keep going down this path, all you're doing is creating more space for people to come after us. And there's already a lot of genuinely bad anti-Semitism around the world. There has been throughout the ages. This just puts fuel under them and gives them more incentive and less restraint to take on, even if you're just worried about the Jewish people around the world who would be unfairly targeted. These policies fuel that. And then you're correct. If we think that that's going to, our shores are going to protect us indefinitely from everything, I think that that's a bad guess. And the more angry we make people unnecessarily, then the greater we create enemies that we don't ever even need to fight.
I think we have a lot of these terrorists already here inside the United States, and I think it's been well documented. All they need is just a trigger, and they're ready to attack. Colonel Davis, great to see you. Check out the deep dive with Colonel Davis on YouTube. Great to have you here. Thank you for keeping us sane right now. We're all trying to avoid a war. Let's tamp down these tempers. Let's
do it.
lower
I appreciate everything you guys are doing toward that end. Thank you.
Thank
you, Colonel. Thank you.
Great context.